morning. This is the Hake Report, and we're going to be talking about the Women's March, etc. Hope you enjoy it, and you can call in 888-775-3773.
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
All right, this is the Hake Report. Thank you guys for joining. This is Sunday, January 21st, and you can call in and join me. I'll be talking about the Women's March and Trump and the flu. The flu is out of control lately. It's as bad as it was 100 years ago, according to one report that I saw, one headline that I saw. I'll be talking about Africa, moving to Africa, and the South Africans and the Ghanaians and all them, and church with Jesse Lee Peterson, which also happens, by the way. Church kind of happens, really, even on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. If you consider where the Bible says, where two or more are present, I am there. And it's in my name type of thing. So, yeah, it's cool. So you can call in, like I said. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my thoughts on the Women's March. No, I did not go. I was tempted to go. It happened in downtown Los Angeles, reportedly, and in Las Vegas and elsewhere around the country. It has been 1 year since Donald Trump came into office, was inaugurated into office. January 20th, 2017 was the day America took a fresh breath of air. And Trump gave that really nice speech about how we're going to make America great again. And we're going to put America first. And no longer will the politicians be running the country against the wishes of the people. And so more and more he's been doing that. And he wished the women's marchers all the best. He tweeted out that it is a beautiful weather all across the country. And so all women get out there and march and celebrate the accomplishments and advances that they've made, that you've made in my first year in office. And he said, lowest unemployment rate for women in 18 years. So isn't that great? It's so nice. Donald Trump, one friend of mine who I told about this tweet said that he's teasing them. And that's true, although I think he really does wish all people well. And that's one thing that's really refreshing about him. Whereas you remember the Tea Party marched against Barack Obama, and this was after Barack passed the quote-unquote socialized medicine, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whatever you want to call it. And he said, I think that's when it happened, but it may not have been. But he was doing all these stupid bailouts and stuff like that. And he said about the Tea Party, you'd think they'd be thanking me. And really, he was being nasty. But Donald Trump, when he's teasing people, he's not nasty like that. At least not in my opinion. Maybe the other people are taking it that way. And all these people, Mia Farrow, who I think was an ex of, who is that man? Woody Allen, as well as she was also with Frank Sinatra at one point, I think. She tweeted, "This is not celebrating your accomplishments. This is protesting against you." And all these people were like, "Oh, are you an idiot? You're a SH head," and all kinds of mean stuff. Men and women were tweeting nasty things towards Trump. He's wishing them well, and they're wishing him evil. But they are protesting against him because the Women's March is primarily headed by Planned Parenthood. And not only Planned Parenthood, but it seems like hundreds of other groups that are almost as bad as them, or as bad as them, including like Muslim victimhood groups and pro-LGBT stuff, all kinds of just disgusting liberal groups that many people have been brainwashed to believe are good, but they're not good, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I remember Jesse was interviewing this one guy about the Women's March, and there was a question came up of whether they were paid or not paid. And you look at all those groups, people were paid. People were paid to set that up. People were paid to, make it what it was. You don't just suddenly come up with a big protest like that, and nobody gets paid. So, anyways, he said, Jesse asked this person, were any good groups supporting it? And this guy, I think those groups are good. That's a stupid question. But he wouldn't really engage Jesse on why they were good. And so that's part of the problem, is that people don't really want to engage on why they think it's good, because they don't want to face the fact that these groups are not good. Because I think everybody really knows when you question them. For example, if you question somebody about abortion, they'll eventually change the subject to eating meat or something like that. I remember I confronted this one woman who was protesting in favor of Black Lives Matter, old white woman, and she was over here on the corner of Pico and La Cienega, and she's like, I'm protesting in favor of Black Lives Matter. And I said, oh, okay, so you're against abortion? Do you support abortion? And she said, what does that have to do with anything? And I said, because those are many, many Black lives are being taken by abortion. And she said, and she doesn't really believe that they're babies, and she thinks that I'm a hypocrite if I eat meat, because meat is murder. So, and I said, okay, that's dumb, basically. And so I kept on pressing the issue with her, and she eventually said, I'm not talking to you anymore. Oh yeah, because she was so disgusted by the fact I eat meat that she didn't even want to talk to me. So anyways, that's how these people are. They are brainwashed, and they don't know what's right. Wrong is right and right is wrong. And they believe in politics. You'll notice that politics is a very controversial sort of topic, because people talk as far as politics. When they talk as far as politics, that's their morality. Because your morality informs your politics. And if you are not politically correct, say, if you're not politically correct, then you're morally wrong, according to these people. And so that's why they hate Trump so bad, because to them, he's morally so evil, even though he's right in general about so many things. So, and what else? The other thing is, they put all of their emotions into it. And that's something that the people on the right side get sucked into as well, which is why last week I said that all liberals are wrong and most conservatives are wrong. The ones who can still show love and not hate when somebody's wrong in their politics, and when somebody's doing evil through being evil through politics, if you're not able to do that, then you're on the wrong side, even though you're technically on the right side. Even though you have the right politics, but spiritually you're messed up. So that's something that the people on the side of good, like Trump, who's so good-natured in his teasing of people and winning and all that, we have to wake up and stop being so pathetic. We're just like the liberals when we get. I almost said pissed off, but I don't want to say that. That's a bad word. When we get mad at them, when we get mad at the media for I've said this before too. If we're mad at the media for being evil, then we're no better than the people who hate whites or the people who hate Jews, because hating the media is no better than hating whites or hating Jews or hating liberals or hating conservatives. So you can't hate. And so that's something that Jesse is really pushing, because he wants he wants the good side to win again. And that's something that is possible to do. And if you doubt that, look at President Trump. He's winning. and he's bold, and he's doesn't back down, and he's strong, and he stands for what's right, and he's good-natured about it all the way through. So that's so refreshing to see. And I love how Trump trolled the women's marchers by saying, yeah, get out there, ladies. That's cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about the ACLU. Speaking of abortion, the ACLU has been pushing for abortion for illegal aliens who are in our holding. They're kind of being held, awaiting deportation. I believe the Department of Homeland Security has been holding illegal aliens, and they kind of like in holding until they get deported or whatever, or until they face a judge who decides whether they should be deported or not, which I don't even understand why it should be a question. I think they should all get kicked out. But I think what happens is lawyers who are generally evil, because most people in general are evil. Yeah, there we go. Trump administration releases, quote unquote, undocumented teenager to obtain abortion. Now, Trump administration didn't willingly do this, but they've lost because the ACLU and liberal judges have been forcing, they've been basically obtaining, what is it called when somebody is, say, when a man and a woman are beating each other up and one of them gets a restraining order, basically a temporary restraining order. Judges are granting like a temporary restraining order, best of my understanding, against the DHS. And what's happening is the illegal alien, mostly minors, are being released. These girls or minor young ladies are being released. They're pregnant to their sponsors, and I don't know who their sponsors are, but somebody is paying for them to have an abortion. Apparently, it's not by taxpayer money, according to them, but the DHS is forced to release these people, and the pretense is that this is for medical treatment. And the ACLU, there's this woman who represents the ACLU, who said, this female lawyer said, that no undocumented teen should have to be forced to be carrying a pregnancy purely for political reasons. And because they're saying that Trump is stopping girls or refusing to release these women from custody in order to have an abortion, because that's not a necessary medical treatment. But the ACLU loves abortion, and they are evil, by the way. And as Jesse said, check out that video if you haven't, in the immigration debate. Jesse said that the ACLU is un-American, and that's a fact. And they're dishonest, very dishonest people. And I've talked about that before, where that video, it's called Immigration Debate, Black Pastor versus Ted Lieu, the ACLU, illegal alien activist, and a guy from The Atlantic, and Crystal Ball, formerly of MSNBC. And Jesse said that they're un-American, and these typical of liberals to lie and use black people, by the way, for their own personal gain and political advancement. And so it's very typical of the ACLU and all liberals to be evil. And I was listening to Bill Lockwood yesterday, American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. Bill Lockwood is a monthly guest on the Jesse Lee Peterson Show. He was not on last month, but he should be back, I don't know, the last Tuesday of the month, maybe this week, maybe next week. But Bill Lockwood was saying, he pointed out that government employees have, and this is across the board, it includes Homeland Security and everything, government employees donated something like over 90% to Hillary and less than 10% to Trump. And in some cases, it was over 99% and less than 1%. And in some cases, it was 95, less than 5, but it was overwhelmingly pro-Hillary, anti-Trump. And these are employees that cannot easily be fired because you consider there are all these protections, especially for government employees. There's protections for employees in general. Like it's not always easy to fire somebody because the laws are against employers in some cases because of the pro-union stuff and anti-freedom laws. And anti-discrimination laws, by the way, too, which are wrong. We have a basic freedom to discriminate, and that has been violated in many states and around the country, too. But anyways, back to this thing. That's kind of an example of the deep state, where these people are unelected. They're hired, and you cannot fire them. Trump can't just go around and fire these people en masse. Although he can diminish the regulations, and he can diminish the role of certain groups. Like he's been trying to diminish the EPA, for example, which is a good thing. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, which really attacks the freedom of businesses to do business under the pretense of protecting the environment when they themselves do not protect the environment. I remember seeing a river that was just turned orange or brownish orange a couple of years ago by the EPA because they released something and I don't know if anybody was fired or anything, but the EPA are a bunch of hypocrites. They're liberal, socialist, globalist types that believe in their stuff as though it's their religion. And it's an evil religion. So where was I? I was talking about these people who are unelected, they're hired, you cannot fire them, and overwhelmingly they support liberals. And I forgot to mention last week about a man named, and I mentioned it during Jesse's show, a man named Moby. Moby is a singer from, I sang a little bit of his song. He's a singer and more of like a dance music guy. White guy, been around since probably the 90s or so. And his songs there's one signature song that appears in all of the Born Identity, Born Supremacy stuff. And at the end of the Born Identity, Born Supremacy stuff, there's Moby. It goes, wee, wee, and he starts kind of like rapping, singing, and it's so 90s, and it's so like alternative, but it's also kind of dancey, hip hop almost influenced to me. But Moby because he tours and stuff like that, and most musicians are liberals. He has become friends with current and former CIA employees, and these people, I said on Jesse's show when I covered for Jesse recently, because Jesse's been doing a lot of media, by the way. He said that these CIA employees have been telling him, hey, can you spread the news on your social media because you have a bigger following than any of us individually? Can you spread the news that this Trump is in bed with Russia? And so he's talking about these guys are telling him that basically he is the Manchurian Candidate. And the Manchurian Candidate was it was basically a movie of this guy who was brainwashed maybe he was a POW or something. I don't know the story exactly, but he was brainwashed, and so he was in this trance, and he came back to America, and there was this trigger, like this sign that would trigger him to do something. And so he became kind of like a politician type of a guy, or he came higher up in the government, and he got this trigger thing that happened, and it put him in this trance, and then he went and got his sniper rifle, and he shot somebody, basically assassinated somebody. And he didn't mean, he wouldn't of himself have done this, but he was brainwashed and conditioned to do it. And so that's what they think that Donald Trump is. He's a Manchurian Candidate, basically like an imposter, a pawn, a figurehead of Russia. And so it just reminds me of what we were thinking of Barack Obama, who was so evil. And I remember conservatives, many of them saying, or conspiracy theorists anyways, saying that Barack Obama is a Manchurian Candidate. he's so evil and he's an imposter and all that. And so basically, I've seen reports where the losers in general become the losers of like a political election. They become they become conspiracy theorists because they cannot believe that the country is so brainwashed that they would be losing, or it has to be some kind of shenanigans, evil dealings, secret dealings. But there is kind of conspiracies, and what happens is like these CIA people are in the deep state. Some of them are former employees, but they're in the deep state because they think that they're so important, and they're no different from these people who are like among the conspiracy theorists, the right winger type conspiracy theorists. They're no different. They're just a bunch of suckers, and so it's funny, but it's in a sense it's not funny because all the media agree with them because the media is liberal. They can't believe that Trump won. And the academics, they all think that Trump is so evil, and so they brainwash the kids who go to college, the young people who go to college. And so we have like a mass brainwashing happening because the people in power are the conspiracy theorists or the anti-Trump, anti-good people. So you have to be perfect. And one of the things that Bill Lockwood said was that there was this book that came out called like 4 Felonies at Every Day. And what happened, what he said was every American 18 years or over has committed some type of crime because there are so many laws on the books. And many of them are like policy type created laws where, say, Congress passes this law and it's kind of vague. So they leave it up to these deep state people, these employees, non-elected officials, to create the policy and define what breaking the law means. So they say, oh, you can't have this type of gun or something like that. Basically, if you are a gun owner, you're a lawbreaker. This is the type of thing that gets passed. And he brought up the example of like Dinesh D'Souza, who, yes, he did break the law, and yes, he should have known better. And so this is not the best example because that's not such a random law that he didn't even know he broke. He knew that he broke it, I think. And anyways, but the point is, they can get you on anything if they want you. If they want to say that, oh, James broke the law, they can probably find something where, yes, I broke the law in some way. And then they can like kind of put me away or something. So that's kind of his summary of the deep state. It was very interesting. But he will be on Jesse's show, and I think that I will have Jesse ask him a little bit about that among his other regular stuff. Last Tuesday of the month, Bill Lockwood on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. So, yeah. Now, there are many people who are actually, believe it or not, moving back to Africa. But they're not back to Africa because they were never African Americans to begin with. They were Black Americans who got brainwashed to believe that this racism thing is such a problem. And they went to Black universities like Howard University, which made them even worse. And Howard University is a all-black college. And they were in the news kind of recently, a few months back, maybe several, where these young girls, students in general, high schoolers, I believe, maybe 16 years old, they started to visit some colleges, or DC in general, and they stopped off at Howard University, and 2 of these girls were wearing like MAGA hats, Make America Great Again hats, pro-Trump apparel, I should say, pro-Trump apparel, and they didn't, from the best I can tell, these girls did not know better. I mean, by know better, I say that they did not know that this was like an all-black college that would be very antagonistic toward them for wearing these hats and this pro-Trump T-shirts. So they, these girls were in the like lunch lounge, basically, like where you pick up your lunch on the campus of Howard University, and these girls were wearing their pro-Trump hats, and they started getting all these snarky remarks towards them. And one person even like grabbed the hat off the top of one girl's head, and like they're like, "Don't come in here like that. You should know better," and stuff like that. And it's so weird to me because there's no reason for blacks to hate Trump, but they do because they're brainwashed. But anyways, this is the type of university that Howard University is, and Howard University basically like defended the students who did this and employees, and basically they were asked to leave. So these students were forced to leave, like, and young students, I mean, like 16-year-old girls who were on a field trip. Want to learn about Howard University? Well, they learned about Howard University. Now, people who are going to Africa are being educated in places like that. So it kind of tells you what they're like. Let me go to my caller. I have a caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mark. I'm calling from Diamond Bar, California.
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
Hey, James. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on Dinesh.
Yeah.
He exceeded the campaign finance laws. He gave $10,000 above the limit
Yeah.
to an old college friend of his that used to help him out when he came to this country.
Right.
And he received nothing in return for that. So it's not a bribe by the definition of a bribe. You have to be receiving something in return.
Right.
And no one else had ever been prosecuted like that for exceeding the campaign finance laws.
Yeah.
So it's a really good point that the government can just pull up a gigantic book, be like, you did this, you're going to be a felon, we're going to take away your rights, you won't be able to vote, you won't be able to have Second Amendment rights, and we're going to incarcerate you. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars to keep you out of prison.
Yeah.
You know?
They said that there are so many laws they can't even tell you how many laws that there are.
Right. And I also wanted to comment on what you were saying earlier about, you know, how you said it's such a good point that all liberals are wrong and most conservatives are wrong. And I think the way I see it is that everything is spiritual all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you could be saying, don't steal, but if you're screaming at your kid with anger not to steal, you're traumatizing that kid.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember you saying something a little while ago about how you used to hate Obama, and that was totally me.
Mm-hmm.
I hated Obama. You know, I thought he was the devil. He was so evil. and the thing is, I would regurgitate all these facts, which are true, but the thing is I had the wrong spirit. I was trying to convince people to hate him. That was what I was really doing.
Yep.
You know? And what really bothered me about him was Obamacare, and I do martial arts and I compete, and I got injured, and then I had surgeries, and the bills just kept coming and coming and coming, and I just felt completely helpless, you know?
Yeah.
And I hated medical insurance and all of this stuff. I hated it. I had the wrong spirit. And then when I just let it go, you know, I just completely let it go. I didn't strategize about it. I said, I'm done hating with this. I started eating better on my own. I started exercising more on my own, you know, and I can deal with any type of injury now. You know what I mean? I get injured all the time.
Yeah.
I don't go to the doctor, you know, unless I need antibiotics or, you know, to put my bone back in place. Something short of that, I don't need a doctor. I don't get sick. You know, the flu's going around. I don't get sick.
That's
you know,
cool.
I eat very healthy, and it's because I stopped putting the responsibility of my health on the government or on whoever. It's my responsibility. And it's great. You know, it's great to never get sick, to get injured and not worried about it, be, you know, very healthy, and just listen to everyone else complain about their bills, how they hate Obama, you know.
Yep. That's so true, and that's a good point. That's kind of what I was driving towards. Like, you have to, in order to fight effectively, you have to be kind of like the Bible says, be blameless, and so that they can't get you for anything. And if they get you for something, it's obvious that you're innocent, like you're a good person, like Trump, in general. I mean, otherwise, they can blackmail you, they can embarrass you, They can
Right,
get
and
you
you
sick.
could be telling the truth, and they could be telling a lie. And
Yeah.
you could just be, you know.
Yeah, and then if you get angry, you're going to look stupid because you're going to look like just an angry person. And it doesn't
And
matter whether
then,
you're telling the truth. They'll just be able to
right.
say,
The real important thing is something like that with, you know, socialism or fascism or just politics in general. You're not talking to the person that you're talking to. You're talking to the people who are listening.
yeah,
And there are good people out there, and they do need to hear the truth. But you're going to completely, you know, hide that, cover it up with your anger. They're not going to hear the truth. They're just going to be like, that guy was a jerk.
yeah,
Because
that's
people
true.
don't remember what you said. They don't even remember what you did, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yep, that's
And
true.
that's
They
why,
can see through you.
right.
Yeah,
A 5-year-old kid can, you know? They know immediately.
Yeah.
Because everything's spiritual all the time.
yeah, that's a good point, Mark.
Well, these are your points, James. I love your points.
Well, I appreciate it. You gonna be at church?
Of course.
All
I'll see
right.
you soon.
Cool.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
That is a really good point about taking care of yourself. And this is something that is very important now because the government is not protecting us. He is right. Obamacare did no favors. I mean, of course, because it gave so-called health insurance, it probably did good for some people. And because if you're going to be giving away health insurance, you're going to be giving away health care in some cases. But then again, there's going to be long lines. People are going to lose jobs. On the whole, it's evil. But in general, the government does not care about us. That's why they allow in all these illegal aliens. And that's why Jesse calls it the flu of late. The illegal aliens disease, not just your standard flu that lasts for a day, 2 days, a week. These things are hanging on and they're getting worse. And part of it is because we're bringing in people and shipments of things and not that careful about who and what comes into the country. And so all kinds of crazy things are coming into the country. And it is affecting old and weak people harshly. So a lot of kids have died from the flu, I think. Old people and people who, young, healthy people. I'm not particularly healthy, but I got it bad. And even to this day, I still have a sore throat, and I got sick. It was like after my interview with AJ, my friend, on Christmas Day, I think it was, or Christmas Eve, I guess it would be. So that's like 3 weeks now. And even before that, I had kind of a sore throat and knew that I was kind of on the edge of getting sick. So basically like a month of being basically kind of run down and sick, you got to take care of yourself. So that's something I got to get better at, but I really encourage you to take it seriously so that you don't get caught having to rely on the government or rely on doctors and stuff, because they don't really have your best interests at heart. You have to take care of yourself. So back to this Africa thing. And you can call in, by the way, at 888-775-3773. I think the number's right here. Yeah. 888-77-JESSE. And Jesse Lee Peterson, as you all know, is the executive producer of the Hake Report. And he has church every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 1 Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. And you should check it out. Last week, we had this very good conversation, Jesse did, with a mother and a son who came for the first time, and they found Jesse on YouTube. So isn't that great? YouTube, as evil as YouTube is, because they hate conservatives, their morality is liberal politics, which is not morality, but it's theirs. That's what they think it is. That's what they think is right, and so they think it's evil for Prager University to tell the truth about some certain things and stuff like that. But these people found Jesse on YouTube, and the mother ended up. It came out she had issues with her mother, who was going to be visiting from Mexico, so she would have the opportunity, as Jesse always tells, to confront her, tell her what issues that she had, that she kind of made her upset sometimes or whatever. And so she was going to be able to confront and forgive and apologize for hating her mother. And the son of this woman who was at church was also there, and the son, 25 years old, young guy, good guy, starting to like take note of himself and where he is in life, feeling like he's 25, doesn't have his career going, and he has a girlfriend who is I think he said a law officer, meaning I believe a police officer, and he's still living at home with his mother. And something about 25-year-olds living with their mothers have been attracted to Jesse, and Jesse has been able to tell him, move out. And this has happened multiple times. We have like multiple videos, and this is out on Jesse's YouTube. Many of you have probably already seen this excerpt from church from last week that was we put out yesterday. It's called "Men, Move Away from Mama, Move Out of Mamas." And it also says how to forgive your mother, parentheses, and your father. And it's an excerpt from last week, January 14th, Church with Jesse Lee Peterson. And so this guy talks about how he did sometimes not really. He said he didn't really get annoyed or irritated with his mother, but she would tell him stuff, and she was right about it. But I think he did have an issue with her, and so Jesse just encouraged him to be honest with his mother and with his father, who was living in Colorado. And his father was not calling him, and so he said, I stopped calling him. I'm just going to see if he calls me. And Jesse's like, don't do that. That's girly. That's like such a woman's way of doing it. And not the good kind of woman, obviously. It's like, Jesse's like, I'm not going to call him until he calls me. And so this is a nice wake-up call to this guy who's really looking for help and the truth and to get himself together and his life together. And so Jesse encouraged him to be honest with his mother and his father, and also with his girlfriend. And Jesse encouraged him not to have sex anymore with his girlfriend, which he was, and he knew he shouldn't, because I think he is a Christian. I think these are Christians. The mother talked about, I've read in the Bible where it says you should be born again. And she asked Jesse, because Jesse talks a lot about being born again. So she had asked him, this is what sparked the conversation, how to be born again. And so her mother is coming from Mexico. She's going to be able to talk with her mother, but her father is deceased. But her son, Jesse, encouraged to deal honestly with his girlfriend as well as his mother and father. Maybe he shouldn't even really be having a girlfriend, because he has to get himself, become a man, really, become someone who would be good for a girl. And in his state, he would not be good for a girl because as Jesse said, you have a woman's nature. And he says that to people, and they kind of have to admit that it's true. And it's like, this guy didn't outwardly like hate Jesse for saying it. He even said, yeah, I kind of realized 2 weeks ago I have a woman's nature. And so it's very fun and interesting and encouraging to see people from around the world getting helped by Jesse. And there were some calls, I alluded to church happening sometimes on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. This week, I think on Tuesday, we got a call from DJ who talked to Jesse. Think he was a black guy, I'm not sure. Young, I believe. He might be married with kids, but anyways, he really resonated with what Jesse's been saying, and he's been helped, and he's confronted his father and mother, I think. It was a good conversation, and we will have that out on the Jesse Lee Peterson YouTube channel, which if you're not subscribed, you obviously should be subscribed to the Jesse Lee Peterson YouTube channel, and click the bell to get alerts so that every time a new video pops up, you will get alerts. And support Jesse, by the way, on Patreon. He has his Patreon page up and running. And that's a way that you can help Jesse because, with YouTube, they've diminished the amount of advertising dollars that we go ahead and let ads run in order to make some money off of the YouTube videos because we put a lot of work into it and put it out there. And so the YouTube has basically called a lot of our content not advertiser friendly, which I understand that they're most big corporations are liberals, but there are many who are not liberals who would want to support us, but they don't have the opportunity in many cases because YouTube is anti-conservative. So you can support Jesse on Patreon. So anyways, there was another guy, by the way, this week, Brandon, who's called into the show many times. And he talked about how he confronted his mother. And he said that it was kind of like confronting God himself. Just to tell her that, he'd been resenting her and he was sorry for it. But it's tough to be honest with your mother for some reason. And so it was funny because he had a very similar story to Jesse. He's 35 years old. And after he did that, things kind of opened up for him and life is so much better. So we will be putting that video out too. So look out for it. If you don't see it, ask me about it. And you can email me, james@jesseleepeterson.com or thehakereport@gmail.com. So anyways, I have another caller. And caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, James, Greg Wilmington, how you doing?
All right, Greg, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I like that you're telling some stories about kind of the things you learned from the Jesse Lee Peterson show. It's funny, this morning, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she goes, how come you always talk about hate so much? How come you don't talk about lust and greed and blah, blah, blah? And, then I just kind of told her why. But it's funny, then I turned on Jesse's show, a rebroadcast, and the first thing somebody did, as soon as I turned it on, they said, I have anxiety. What's my problem?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jesse, of course, said anger right away, and anger cuts you off from God, and that's what, there was a little bit more to it, but my short version is that's what gives you anxiety because you're separate from your creator.
That's it. Greg, you're getting like a lot of wind or something. Are you walking outside?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm outside. I'll stop.
Okay.
Any better when I stop?
Yeah, way better. Thank you. It's better for all of our listeners too.
Yes.
So that is interesting. I noticed, and I don't really understand it, but I noticed that the times that I was the most PO'd, put out, made angry,
I get you.
like those were like the worst times as far as like falling into all those other things, falling into all kinds of other stuff was fed by my anger and hatred, because or my ego basically, like getting into myself, my desires, my anger, my whatever, that fed all of the just becoming a mess. So my health went down and everything. And that stuff can last for years. And oh man. Jesse talks about people being stubborn and needing to suffer. Or maybe, like he's speculating that maybe people just need to suffer before they get better. But man, you get so much worse off. You can be like the healthiest person, and then your just life goes. Because
it doesn't really do you that much good to work out and eat the right food, because if you have the anger, it's not, it's going to be better than not working out and not eating the right food. But the anger just changes the whole chemistry in your body. I mean, all you have to do is observe yourself the next time you get angry and just feel the chemical changes going on.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Right. But I mean, it's kind of like an ongoing thing, even when you're not, quote unquote, feeling the anger. It's like you just don't have self-control.
Right. and I'm sure whatever effect it has on you is going on anyway. It's just not full-blown exploded, but it's still, working under the surface.
And the funny thing is, like, meanwhile, you're so self-righteous. Like for me, during that time, I was, like I've talked about, going crazy kind of on Facebook and Twitter and arguing with people and losing friends and stuff like that. And I'm like touting what's right, so-called, yet just a mess within myself. And not that you should just shut up about pointing out wrong, but it's kind of funny that I went nuts, like kind of beating people over the head or beating the air over how evil the world was and Obama and all these things. And the fact that they're promoting homosexuality as good and just how insanely immoral the world is. Meanwhile, I'm that ineffective Christian who is no better.
Yeah, it goes back to what he says about observing yourself, because if you are on, let's say, Facebook and you're debating people,
Yeah.
and you notice that you're kind of involved rather than just like, okay, I did that, I took out the trash, now I'm just going to go eat, it's still on your mind. You know what I mean? You're still kind of having that battle with the people, even though you're done with it.
Yeah. Of course, and like Patrick is watching on the chat, and he said, or commenting on the chat, and he said, self-righteousness is a powerful drug, and that's so true. Like every time you're mad, you think you're right, and you really can't see that you're wrong.
Yeah, it was funny because
even though you kind of know you're wrong, but it's weird.
Yeah, no, with my friend, we were having the same conversation, and one of the things I said is, you have to, we talked about what judgment was, and it's playing God and everything. And you have to be able to have these kind of discussions, but if the other person doesn't get it, just don't worry about it. Like you just say what you got to say.
Yeah.
And then they can see it or not see it, and
yeah,
you're not even bothered if it's nice if they see it, but if they don't see it, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. Most people's minds aren't open to be changed. And so like if you have a debate with somebody, they're never going to agree with you for the most part. It's the people who are listening who are actually like open-minded or kind of already know the truth but just need a little bit of confirmation. Or those are the people whose minds are going to be changed, like what Mark said earlier.
Yeah, and of course they can also be, because people have a certain amount of pride, they might not want to change it because, and I don't even have a problem with this, because they might think if they yield to your truth, even though it is the truth, they might be yielding to you rather than yielding to the truth itself. So I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah, maybe later they'll change their mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like because otherwise it becomes too much about you and not about or me or whoever.
Right.
Not the actual truth itself. So I'm just learning to be like patient in that regard. Just let the chemistry do its thing. Just step back.
Cool.
How does it feel to host the show alone? That must be kind of different.
It is different. It's fun. I'm considering different guests that I may bring on. For example, there's, I should get more friendly with people, but I have some friends and different people who may be coming on the show soon. I'm thinking of inviting one of the guys who created this movie called Varsity Punks. I'm going to invite him on the show if he's interested in coming on, because I talked a little bit about his movie on Christmas Eve with AJ, my other friend. So but in the meantime, it's kind of fun, and I'm able to talk about the stuff that's kind of on my mind and kind of recap what happened on Jesse's show, which is cool. And it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And one time there was a guy who did a religious show. This was like 20 years ago, and he didn't really know, how he would do it. And I used to work in a sound studio, so he asked me if I would come and host with him. And so we got into a disagreement about something, and so he just quit the show. And now I'm on there like for a half hour,
Wow.
and I have nothing prepared, and of course, you're just staring at a microphone. It's not like you're talking to someone and you're getting feedback.
Right.
And so I'm kind of identifying with that with you right now.
Nice.
I don't know, how much preparation you do, but it sounds like you're just kind of talking from your heart and not like you're.
I write down a few
going
notes.
from prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, I may adjust how I do things over time, but I'm just kind of going as I go. Yeah, you should send me that show. You should send that to me.
I can find a copy of it. It's an old tape.
I see.
That exact show I never got a tape of. I always wanted to get a tape of that because I wondered what actually he said after the time. The funny thing is the guy who did it was black, and our disagreement was about the fact that he didn't think George Washington was a good guy because George Washington had slaves.
Yeah.
And this guy happened to own a sporting goods store. And so I took a look at his stuff and I said, well, you have some stuff made in China. And maybe
Right.
100 years from now, they'll say you weren't a good guy because you sold stuff made in China.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? I mean, it has to do with the context of the era of which you live. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't understand how people can be so morally self-righteous about slavery because slavery was, I don't see that there's anything inherently wrong with it. The only thing is if you can get your freedom, do so. But I'm glad that it's illegal in America, but the reality is what inherently is evil about slavery? Yes, you own somebody, but that's how the world is. Basically, you are owned by other people. You are the slave of other people. And so, what's the difference? And so, to me, I don't get it. I mean, I understand, sometimes there were beatings and stuff that may not have been right, and so-called rapes, which I think a lot of that is played up way more than it really needs to be, than it actually was. But, yeah, it's ridiculous. And we have abortion in this country, which is way worse than slavery. And
yeah, because that's absolute murder. When you think about it,
that's unquestionably wrong. Yeah.
Depending on your income bracket, you're probably enslaved to the tune of about half of what you make.
Right.
For the average person.
Yep.
So I don't see anybody, or there's some people, but for the most part, people aren't even aware of that. And we're enslaved, just like, let's say a slave's labor may go for things he disagrees with. I mean, think about how much of the government spending we disagree with, yet we are forced at gunpoint, which is no different than being in chains. It's just that, you can, I guess, walk around the park where you couldn't walk around the park if you were in chains. But I'm assuming they didn't work all the time. When they weren't working, they were just, doing whatever, hanging out with their family or whatever.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Greg.
Okay, good show. Thanks, James.
All right, take care. I have one more caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Brian from Eastville, California.
Hey, Brian. Good to hear from you. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, James?
Doing well. Do you happen to be on speakerphone at the moment?
Yeah, I'm taking it off.
Okay, cool.
All right, how's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better. Appreciate it.
Okay. I wanted to get back. You were talking about earlier about those college students that are the Africans that were African Americans that were going back to Africa. Is that right?
Yeah. So the story is there's educated blacks there's this one woman who grew up in Philly and then she went to Howard University, and they say at places like Howard University, which is a historically black college, primarily black people go, they said, when you go out into the real world is not all black like it is around here. So you have to get used to that. And then she went to Ghana and is living in Ghana because they have fashion and they have parties and they have everything. And then the perks of being treated like an American, which they treat you better. So she decided to live and stay in Africa. And I think she made this documentary called Blacksit with 5 other blacks who are educated at basically all black schools. And they're doing it to escape racism. And they say, oh, you may not have electricity, but at least you don't get killed by police. And so it's so ridiculous and evil, but that's the story. There's blacks moving back to Africa. There are 3,000 to 5,000, I think, from America living in, I think, Ghana or somewhere. There's 3 main countries where they're moving to.
No, that's really bizarre. I kind of don't understand it in the sense that, Africa is a continent, right?
Right.
And a lot of these people are saying they're moving back to where they came from.
Right.
It's kind of like Europe is a continent.
Yeah.
In that sense, and it's like, okay, I'm Italian, so I'm just going to move back to Europe. Well, am I going to move to Ireland or am I going to move to Portugal? I mean, they don't even know what country in Africa they actually came from.
Yep.
Did they come from? Did they come from Ghana? Did they come from South Africa? Did they come from the Ivory Coast? They don't even have an idea.
Yeah, and they do the tests and they still don't know.
They still don't know.
Yep.
And what tribe did they come from?
Yeah.
I mean, were they Zulus? Were they Watusis? Were they Mandingos? Do they even know?
And why does it matter?
And yeah, why does it matter even? But it's like, if somebody asks me, where did my ancestors come from? I'm going to tell them, they came from Palermo, Sicily. I know exactly where they came from.
Yeah.
So an African isn't really an African. That's like saying I'm a North American.
Right.
Am I from Canada, United States, or Mexico?
Right. Yeah.
It's really, it's a sign of ignorance when saying I'm going back to Africa.
Right.
It's you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're all into their so-called black identity, but
right.
How Jesse talks about who are you and what is your identity, and in reality, these people I want to ask, are they close to their fathers and mothers? Because your identity is directly from your father and mother first, and then God. And everything else doesn't really matter that much. You could, it's kind of fun to know who your great-grandparents were and all that stuff and what they did. But that's so irrelevant to who you are because it's the present day. Yeah. It's
these people
very
are
shallow.
So superficial.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like they're as deep as the color of their skin.
Yeah.
They're as deep as the curl, the diameter of curl in their afro. That's how deep they are.
Yeah.
They're as deep as the diameter of their nostrils. It's like they're as deep as how much fat is in their lip cells. Who gives a damn?
I know.
If I go out in the sun long enough, okay, am I going to be closer to a black man than if I didn't? You know what I mean? If my tan gets darker, will I have more of a black mentality? It's really stupid. Really, really stupid.
It is. It's kind of trying to skip what the basics are, and what Jesse points us all back to is like you're not going to ever have your real identity. You're not going to ever be yourself until you love and forgive your mother and your father, because otherwise you're Satan's child. And so you can go back to Africa and you'll still be Satan's child, or you come here and you'll still Satan's child. You have to become a child of God, otherwise you're an idiot.
Everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said it, James. Everything else really doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
If I hate you, it doesn't matter if I'm black or white or whatever. I got the fire down below. That's all that's going to happen.
Yep.
I'm gonna die. I'll die a black man. I'll die an Italian. I'll die whatever, an Eskimo.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So these college students, they ought to get a refund.
Some of them
whatever university they went to.
Yeah, and some of them are professionals. This woman was a professional, and she quit her job and moved to Africa.
Wow.
Well, I appreciate it.
I'd like to get a fund going for all of them to go back. All those people who want to go back, I'd like to get a fund going.
Yeah, Jesse was happy about this
and the
news.
country just be better.
Yep.
Yeah, even if you're white and you want to go back to Africa, I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to chip in.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
This has been the Hake Report. Thank you for listening. And tune in to church with Jesse Lee Peterson in 1 hour. Rebuildingtheman.com/church. Subscribe to Bond, Rebuilding the Man on YouTube, and get your notifications. Thank you guys.